When you think of Cleopatra, what's the first image that comes to mind? For most of us, it's a queen of Egypt, a lover of powerful Roman man, really a symbol of exotic seduction. But here's the thing. That image, the one we all know so well, it's a story that was written by her enemies. And for 2,000 years, it has almost completely hidden the truth.
I mean, just listen to this famous description. This is the scene that has captivated the world for centuries. Cleopatra sailing up the river to meet Mark Antony on a golden barge with purple sails. It's pure spectacle, and it was immortalized by Roman historians like Plutarch. It paints a very clear picture, doesn't it? A woman who ruled through charm and seduction alone.
It is an incredibly powerful image, no doubt about it. But we really have to ask ourselves, what if this whole romantic fantasy is actually a piece of deliberate political character assassination? What if the story we've been told all this time is nothing more than a carefully constructed myth?
To find the real Cleopatra, we have to start by understanding the fiction. And that fiction, well, it was born in Rome, crafted by the very people who wanted to see her destroyed.
You see, the official Roman story painted Cleopatra as this unworthy manipulator, a vile and weak woman totally ruled by her passions. They called her comical, drunken, even a monstrous foreign threat who used her sexuality to corrupt Rome's greatest men. This was the version of Cleopatra that her enemies absolutely needed the world to believe.
But if we look past all that Roman propaganda and start digging into other historical sources, a very, very different person starts to emerge. A portrait of a brilliant leader, an intellectual, who fought desperately to save her kingdom.
The myth of the simple seductress just crumbles when you look at the facts. Cleopatra wasn't just some beautiful face. She was a highly educated scholar. In fact, she was the first ruler of her dynasty in 300 years to even bother learning the Egyptian language, on top of 7 others. She wrote books on medicine and science. And she inherited a kingdom that was completely bankrupt, and, through really skillful economic management, she worked to make it stable again. Her greatest assets weren't her looks, they were her mind and her charisma.
You know, above everything else, Cleopatra saw herself as the mother and the protector of Egypt. Pretty much every major decision she ever made served one single goal: to keep her country independent from the relentless expansion of Rome. And you have to understand that context to understand her actions.
So this brings us to her famous relationships. They've been romanticized for centuries, right? But their origins were really rooted in cold, hard political reality.
Her connections with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony weren't just whirlwind romances. They were strategic alliances, and they were absolutely essential for the survival of her kingdom. For Cleopatra, love and politics weren't separate things. They were tools of statecraft.
I mean, look at the timeline. When she was just 22, she allied herself with a 52-year-old Julius Caesar. It was a purely pragmatic move to secure her throne from her younger brother, who was trying to push her out. Then, years later, her relationship with Mark Antony began as a way to stabilize her kingdom and forge a powerful bond between Egypt and Rome's eastern territory.
Okay, so if Cleopatra was really this capable, strategic ruler, where did this myth of the monstrous seductress even come from? Well, the answer lies with her final and most successful enemy, Caesar's heir, Octavian.
As the historian D.W. Roller puts it, the Roman propaganda machine, with Octavian pulling the levers, systematically turned her into this terrifying figure. She became the perfect foreign enemy, a really convenient scapegoat for all of Rome's internal problems. Octavian launched what was basically a vicious and incredibly effective smear campaign. He accused Cleopatra of everything you can imagine: adultery, sorcery, animal worship, drunkenness. But the most damaging claim of all was that she was planning to use Mark Antony as a puppet to conquer Rome itself. It was an information war, and Octavian was a master of it.
And this propaganda got baked right into Roman culture. Get this, in Virgil's great epic poem, the Aeneid, which was written to glorify Octavian's rule, the Queen of Egypt is a central figure in this huge, pivotal battle, but she is never even given a name. She's just dismissed as Antony's Egyptian mate. It was a deliberate act of political erasure.
So Octavian's victory was total, and his version of events would go on to shape everything, even how we remember Cleopatra's final moments. He created this dramatic ending that's been accepted as fact for centuries.
The story we all know is that after she was defeated, Cleopatra took her own life with the bite of an asp, which was supposedly smuggled to her in a basket of figs. It was the perfect ending for Octavian's narrative, a weak, emotional woman who just couldn't bear to face her conqueror.
But if we look at this like a historical cold case, we have to ask, Does this story really make sense? Or did Octavian, the one man who had the most to gain from her death, have every reason to want her gone?
The motives are just so compelling. You've got personal vengeance. Antony had divorced Octavian's own sister to marry Cleopatra. You've got political necessity. She was a powerful, charismatic rival who could always be a threat. There was incredible financial gain. Her death gave him total control of Egypt's legendary wealth. And finally, her suicide just perfectly completed his story, whereas executing her in public might have caused riots.
So whether it was murder or suicide, Cleopatra was gone. But Octavian's version of her story, well, its long life was really just beginning.
Octavian's lie was so powerful that it just echoed through the centuries. Roman poets cemented it in their work. More than 1,600 years later, Shakespeare, while he gave her some complexity, still framed her story as a tragedy of passion. And then, of course, in the 20th century, Hollywood films locked in that image of the exotic seductress for the whole world to see. A single piece of political propaganda shaped our view of her for 2,000 years.
The story of Cleopatra really forces us to think about a pretty fundamental question. Here was a scholar, a politician, a queen, who is systematically erased and replaced by a caricature that was created by her conquerors. It just makes you wonder, if history is truly written by the victors, how many other stories have we lost?
Thank you so much for joining us as we've tried to explore the real story of Cleopatra and separate the woman from the myth.
If you found this journey into the past insightful, please do subscribe to our channel. We'll be doing a lot more deep dives just like this one to uncover the truth behind the history we think we know.
We look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again for watching.